All right, let's take a look at 4 possible scenarios within the scope of our course, like statics, right? To start, assume that we have a screw, right? There's some loading on it. Now, we might want to lift that loading up or bring it down, right? We represent that loading with W here. Whatever that loading is, let's say it has a weight of W. We're applying a moment M, this initially, and the radius of this screw is R, right here. Now we want to use this and study, or better to say, look into 4 possible cases. Let's start with, let me write it here. There can be 4 possible cases, right, within the scope of this course, obviously. The first one, which is this one, we'll get to the second one soon. So the first one is impending, or better to say upward impending motion. Upward impending motion, right? Let's describe it this way. Think of this screw and where it is in contact with the rest of the system, right there. And let's say we're going to blow it up, zoom in. We look at that specific thread. The thread is in contact. This is our thread, right? It's in contact with the surface of the part. And here we have the free body diagram. Now, the W is there, the weight on our screw. We have the force applied because of the moment that we are applying to this screw. Remember, M is equal to FR, right? The force multiplied by distance. Now, distance is R, is the radius. We are given M, right? We're told that the external moment or the torque applied to this screw is M. So we can actually calculate F, force is M over R. And that's where this M over R, where did that come from? That's where it came from. We have the possible motion, right? In this case, we're talking about upward impending motion. The possible motion could be in this direction. And remember, the friction is always trying to stop the motion, or it's against the motion, or it's against the direction of the possible motion. So if the possible motion is in this way, the friction force, represented here with F, correctly put in this direction, to the left, down left, I would say. And we have N, which is basically a normal force from the surface to this thread, right, that we are drawing free body diagram for. Now we have theta from before. We introduced theta. We said it's lead angle, and R is pretty much representing just the vector, the resultant vector for F and N, friction and normal force. We saw this vector R and the angle theta S, which is basically the angle of a static friction when we were talking about theory of friction all the way back at the beginning. All right. So now what we want to do is that we want to draw the free body diagram. Remember, this is an impending motion, upward impending motion. So this F is enough, the magnitude of F, let's put it this way, the magnitude of F, or this force, which is derived from the moment we apply, is strong enough that this screw is about to move up. I'm going to write the equations of equilibrium for this. Summation of force in x direction is equal to 0. We take this as positive. summation of forces in y direction is equal to 0, and let's say take this as positive. If I do that, keep this m over r, let me clean this up. The forces in x direction, let's say we have m over r. I'm taking the direction to the right as positive, so that's positive. And instead of writing the components for f and n separately, I'm going to write the components for r, which is the resultant vector for f and r, and I'm going to decompose it into x and y component. So here is what I'll do. I say this is r, this is rx, this is ry. Now rx is, if you pay attention, this angle here is theta plus phi s. Right? So rx becomes r sine theta plus phi s, and ry becomes r cosine theta plus phi s. Phi s being the angle of a static friction. Right? I'm going to just write it here again in case you forgot from a while ago. Phi s is equal to tan inverse, remember, was tan inverse mu s, angle of static friction. So it becomes mu m over r minus r x, which is r sine theta plus phi s is equal to 0. The second equation, I took upward as positive, so that becomes r cosine theta plus phi s minus w is equal to 0. Right? You move things around. From the first one, you get r sine theta plus phi s is equal to m over r. From the second one, you get w is equal to r cosine theta plus phi s. Divide those two equations, and you get tan function, tangent function. So you're going to end up having, from these two, you're going to end up having m over r is equal to w tan theta plus phi s, and from there you get m for moment is rw tan theta plus phi s. This is the relationship we're looking for, and that gives the relationship between the moment applied to this screw. Remember, when you're in upward impending motion, we're just on case 1. The relationship between moment applied to the screw, the radius of the screw, the weight, whatever weight is on the screw, we want to lift it up. Theta, which is a static angle of a static friction, and phi s, which is the angle of a static friction, and theta, which is the lead angle. All right. That one was for case 1. For case 2, which we're gonna call it self-lock, and by self-lock, what we're trying to say is that this is the case where if you have no external moment applied to a screw, there is no M involved, right? You have some weight on your screw, you know that the screw is somehow holding or handling some kind of weight, but the friction between the between the threads of the screw and the part is enough to hold the screw where it is and does not allow the screw to start going down. So the friction is strong enough in general to keep the load where it is, and it doesn't and the screw doesn't start going down because of the weight. That's called self-lock, meaning that without any external moment, it's locked where it is. Right? So let me put it this way. If the screw remains in place under any under the, let's put it this way, under the axial load W when the moment M is removed. Now, when does that happen? Right? That happens when phi s is greater than or equal to theta. Right? The angle of a static friction is greater than or equal to a lead angle. Now, if they become equal, right, we are going to be on the verge of moving downward. Right? That's the critical moment or the critical situation in which we are on the verge of rotating down. Right? On the verge of moving downward. All right. So first two cases, right? Upward impending motion and then self-lock. The third one is the case for which we have downward impending motion, but let's call them, let's put them this way: 3-1 and 3-2. Put them under general case 3. We'll call it downward impending motion. Right. Maybe I should follow the same order I was following. So let's call this 3, call this 4. 3 would be self downward impending motion, and 4, oh, we'll get to 4. Let's just talk about this one. So in downward impending motion, what happens is that we need to apply moment, some moment. We'll just call it M prime here because we used M for upward impending motion. We need to apply a moment M prime to prevent the screw from going down. Right? We're going in this order: upward impending motion, we apply moment M to go up, or to get to a point that we're about to move up. Self-lock, that's the case. If you remove M, nothing happens. It's going to be locked. It doesn't go up or down. Well, it can't go up. It doesn't start going down because the friction is strong enough to keep it there. Downward impending motion is in the is a situation in which we are about to move downward. So the weight is a lot. We are talking about a heavy weight, right? Or theta, angle theta, which is the lead angle, is large, and as a result, we are about to move downward. Or if we don't apply any moment, we're going to move downward. We can think about this as, let me put here, not self-locked. I can probably write it better. Self-locked. Self-locked. All right. In order to keep the weight where it is, we have to apply some moment M prime, because if we don't, then it's going to start going down. So that's basically the minimum moment we need to apply to keep the weight where it is. If we don't apply that, it's not self-locked. It's going to start going down. So I'm going to write it this way. We need to apply a moment. Let's call it M prime to prevent the screw from going downward, right? Because W is too much, very heavy, or angle theta, lead angle, is too big. And as a result, the friction cannot stop this screw from going down. It's not enough. Friction is not enough. So we have to add some moment. Now, if you write the equations of equilibrium, following what we did for first case and decompose the forces, right, here is what you're going to get. You're going to get M prime, or the moment you need to keep the load where it is, or to stop, minimum moment you need to stop this screw from from going down, would be R W tan theta minus Vs. I encourage you to actually draw the free body diagram for this case and derive this equation, derive this relationship. And this is the case where, let me add it here, where theta is greater than Vs. If theta is greater than Vs, as I said, the lead angle is large, this friction is not enough to keep this load where it is, or stop the screw from sliding down. The last scenario is the downward impending motion when it's self-locked. So let me see what I called the previous one, self-lock. I'll call this self-lock, locking, better to say. I should have used self-locking for the previous one. So self-locking, for downward impending motion, right? It's in parentheses. That's the case that we want to push this load downward, right? But if we let it go, it's not going to go downward. We need an extra moment add to a system to push this load down, or to push this screw downward. Right. So let me write this one. That's what we call it M double prime, meaning that this is just a moment we apply because we want the system to be self-locked. If we actually don't do it, it's going to start going up. Let me write it this way. A moment M double prime must, because if we don't apply that, right, must be applied to the screw in the opposite direction to wind the screw downward, right? To just keep, if we don't apply that, it's just not going to stay. It's just, we need something there to keep it where it is. That, if you draw the free body diagram for this case, you're going to get M double prime as R W tan Vs minus theta, right? There you go. And again, I highly encourage you to actually draw the free body diagram for this and make follow the procedure we did for the first case, and see if you can derive this relationship between the moment we need to apply to the screw to keep it there, and lead angle, W, radius of the screw R, and finally the angle of static friction. You should be able to derive that based on the free body diagram for this case. And in this case, phi s is greater than theta. This is the case that is the least, I think I would say the least possible case that you have to deal with when you're dealing with these different scenarios or situations that you have a load on your screw and you want to find the relationship between the moment you need to keep the load where it is, depending on the friction, lead angle, whatever the load is on your screw.